Back when I was 23, I worked a night shift at a grocery store on the edge of town. The store stayed open 24 hours, but after midnight it became almost completely empty. Most nights, there were only 3 employees in the entire building. Me, a cashier named Linda, and a manager named Greg. The town itself was small, and by 2 in the morning there were rarely more than 2 or 3 customers inside at any given time. I actually liked the job. The silence made the nights go by quickly. I would stock shelves while listening to music through one earbud. Nothing exciting ever happened. At least, not until one particular Friday night. The weather had been terrible. Heavy rain hammered the roof for hours. The parking lot was empty, except for a few employee cars. Around 2:30 a.m., Greg asked me to organize the canned food section. The aisle was near the back of the store, far away from the registers, far away from everyone else. I grabbed a cart loaded with products and started stocking shelves. Everything felt normal. Then I heard something. A cough. A man's cough. I looked up. At the far end of the aisle stood a tall man. He wasn't shopping. He wasn't holding a basket. He was just standing there, watching me. I gave him a polite nod and went back to work. A minute later, I glanced up again. The man hadn't moved. Still standing there. Still staring. Something about him felt strange. His clothes looked old. Not dirty. Just old-fashioned. Like something from decades ago. I tried to ignore it. Customers do weird things all the time. But after several more minutes, he was still there, completely motionless, just staring. The hairs on my arms stood up. I decided to ask if he needed help. "Sir." No response. I walked closer. "Can I help you find something?" The man slowly turned and walked around the corner, without saying a word. I followed, but when I reached the end of the aisle, nobody was there. I stopped, confused. The next aisle was empty. The aisle beyond that was empty too. There was nowhere he could have gone that quickly. I checked both directions. Nothing. The man had simply disappeared. I laughed nervously and convinced myself he had moved faster than I realized. Then I went back to work. About 20 minutes later, I headed toward the employee break room. As I passed the frozen food section, I saw him again, the same man, standing perfectly still, watching me. This time I froze. There was no doubt it was him. Same clothes, same expressionless face, same unsettling stare. I looked away for just a second. When I looked back, he was gone. My stomach dropped. I immediately found Greg. I told him everything. He laughed. "You're getting tired." I wanted to believe that, but something felt wrong. Around 4 a.m., Linda came running from the front registers. She looked pale. "Did either of you see an older guy walking around?" The room went silent. Greg stopped smiling. "What older guy?" Linda described him. Every detail matched. The clothes, the height, the blank expression, everything. Neither of us said a word for a moment. Finally, Greg admitted he'd seen someone matching that description near the dairy section earlier. The 3 of us searched the entire store. Every aisle, every bathroom, every emergency exit. Nothing. No customer. No sign of anyone. Even stranger, the security cameras showed nothing. Whenever one of us claimed to see the man, the cameras covering that area showed empty aisles. Completely empty. None of it made sense. Morning finally arrived. The shift ended. I tried not to think about it. A week later, I mentioned the incident to an employee who had worked there for nearly 15 years. The color drained from his face. Then he asked me something. Did he look like he was from another time? I nodded. The older employee sighed. Then he told me a story. Years before I worked there, a customer had suffered a fatal heart attack in the store during the night. The man had collapsed near aisle 12. According to him, employees had reported seeing the same figure ever since, always during overnight shifts, always watching from a distance, always disappearing before anyone could approach. I wanted to dismiss it as an urban legend, but then he showed me something, an old newspaper clipping hanging in the manager's office, a photo of the man who had died. The moment I saw the picture, my blood ran cold. It was him, the exact same man, the same face, the same clothes, The same expression. I quit the job 3 months later. Not because of that night, but because I kept seeing him. Sometimes near the back aisles. Sometimes reflected in freezer doors. Always watching. Always silent. And the strangest part? The cameras never recorded him. Not once. To this day, I still wonder why he seemed so interested in me. Because out of all the employees who worked there, I was the only one who kept seeing him after that first night. This story comes from a security guard who worked the overnight shift at a large office building. The building was located on the outskirts of the city. During the day, thousands of employees worked there. At night, it was completely empty. Just one security guard, one giant building, and hours of silence. The guard's name was Marcus. He had worked security for almost 6 years and wasn't the type of person who scared easily. His job was simple. Every hour, he would walk through each floor, check locked offices, make sure no alarms had been triggered, and then return to the security room. Most nights were boring, which was exactly how he liked them. One night, shortly after midnight, Marcus was sitting in the security office watching camera feeds. The building had 8 floors. Every hallway was covered by cameras. Nothing unusual appeared on any of the screens. Then his radio crackled. A voice came through. "Can someone help me?" Marcus immediately sat up. The voice sounded weak, almost like someone whispering. He grabbed the radio. "Hello? Who is this?" No response. Just static. He checked the building log. Nobody else was supposed to be inside. Thinking maybe a cleaning crew had arrived without notice, he reviewed the cameras. Every hallway appeared empty. Every office appeared empty. No movement anywhere. A few minutes later, the radio crackled again. "Please help me." This time Marcus clearly heard a woman's voice. The message lasted only a second. Then silence. Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. The building's radio system was private. Only employees with company radios could communicate through it. And all those radios were locked in a cabinet downstairs. He checked them. Every single one was accounted for. Still, he couldn't ignore the possibility that someone was trapped inside. Maybe an employee had stayed late. Maybe someone had become injured. He decided to investigate. At first, the hallway looked empty. Then he noticed something. A shadow, standing at the very end of the corridor, almost hidden in darkness. The figure wasn't moving. It simply stood there, watching the camera. Marcus zoomed in. The image quality wasn't great, but he could tell it was a person. Tall, thin, motionless. The figure remained there for nearly 30 seconds. Then it walked around a corner. Marcus stared at the screen. He had just been on that floor moments earlier. He never saw anyone. Immediately, he called local police. 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes. Together, they searched the building. Every office, every stairwell, every storage room. Nothing. The building was completely empty. The officers eventually left. One of them suggested it could have been interference from another radio frequency. Marcus wasn't convinced, especially after what happened next. Around 3 a.m., he received another transmission. The same woman. This time, she sounded calmer, almost exhausted. "Don't let him see you." Marcus felt ice run through his veins. "Who are you?" he asked. For several seconds, there was silence. Then the woman answered, and what she said still terrifies him. "I used to work here." The radio went dead. Marcus waited. Nothing else came through. The remainder of the shift passed quietly. As soon as morning arrived, he went looking for answers. He spoke with the building manager. At first, the manager dismissed the story. Then Marcus mentioned the woman's voice. The manager's expression changed instantly. He became very quiet. After a long pause, he asked Marcus a question. Did she sound young? Marcus said yes. The manager slowly nodded. Then he told him something he had never shared with any employee. Years earlier, before the company owned the building, a woman had worked late one night. According to records, she never made it home. Her disappearance remained unsolved. No suspect was ever identified. No body was ever found. The last known location anyone could place her was inside that building. Marcus listened in silence. Then he asked about the shadow on the 6th floor. The manager looked uncomfortable. Apparently, multiple guards over the years had reported seeing a tall figure in that same hallway, always late at night, always standing still, always near the area where the woman was last seen. Most employees eventually stopped talking about it. Nobody wanted to be labeled crazy. Marcus continued working there for another year. The radio transmissions never happened again, at least not to him. But one thing still bothers him. Taking a flashlight in his radio, Marcus began searching floor by floor. Everything seemed normal. The 1st floor was empty. The 2nd floor was empty. The 3rd floor was empty. Nothing. No sounds. No people. No signs of trouble. By the time he reached the 6th floor, he was starting to feel ridiculous. Then his radio came alive again. This time the voice sounded terrified. "He's coming." Marcus froze. The transmission ended. His heart started pounding. For the first time that night, he genuinely felt afraid. He radioed back. "Who is this? Where are you?" Only static answered. Then another sound, a low scratching noise, almost like someone dragging their fingernails across a microphone. Marcus immediately returned to the security room. He reviewed camera footage from the exact time the transmission occurred. Nothing appeared unusual until he checked one camera on the 6th floor. A month before he quit, he was reviewing archive security footage from that night, frame by frame, trying to get a better look at the figure. That's when he noticed something. The shadow wasn't facing the camera. It wasn't watching the camera at all. It was facing something else. Someone else. A person standing directly behind the camera. A person who wasn't visible anywhere in the footage. And according to the timestamp, there should have been nobody there. This story comes from a maintenance worker named Daniel, who worked overnight shifts for a city subway system. His job was to inspect stations after service ended and make sure everything was safe before the morning rush began. Most people imagine subway stations as crowded and noisy places, but after midnight, they become something completely different. Long empty platforms, dark tunnels stretching endlessly into darkness, and silence so deep that every sound seems amplified. Daniel had worked the job for nearly 4 years. He was used to being alone. At least, he thought he was. One Tuesday night, his schedule took him to an older station on the edge of the city. The station was one of the oldest in the system. Most trains stopped using it after midnight. Only maintenance crews visited during the early morning hours. When Daniel arrived around 1:30 a.m., the station was completely deserted. The last train had departed almost 40 minutes earlier. He began his routine inspection, checking lights, inspecting emergency exits, making notes on a maintenance tablet. Everything seemed normal. Then he heard something. Footsteps, slow footsteps, coming from the opposite platform. Daniel looked up. At the far end of the station stood a man. The figure appeared to be wearing a dark overcoat. His face was hidden in shadow. At first, Daniel assumed he was a homeless person who had wandered into the station. It happened occasionally. Stations closed. Daniel called out. No response. The man remained motionless. Daniel walked closer. The figure slowly turned and began walking toward the tunnel. His movements looked strange, almost unnatural, like he was gliding rather than walking. Within seconds, he disappeared into darkness. Daniel sighed. People weren't supposed to enter the tunnels. It was dangerous. Grabbing his flashlight, he headed after him. The tunnel was empty. No sign of anyone. The only sounds were distant drips of water and the hum of electrical equipment. Daniel searched for several minutes before giving up. Whoever the man was had vanished. Feeling annoyed more than frightened, he returned to the platform. That's when he noticed something impossible. A train was approaching. Its headlights glowed faintly in the distance. Daniel stared. No trains were scheduled until morning, yet he could clearly hear tracks vibrating. The train slowly emerged from the tunnel. Its cars looked old, much older than modern subway trains. The paint appeared faded. The windows were dark. No lights inside. No visible passengers. The train rolled into the station and stopped. The doors opened. Nobody got off. Nobody got on. The entire platform remained silent. Daniel stood frozen. He radioed the control center. "Do we have a train running on line 7? The dispatcher sounded confused. "No, line 7 is shut down until 5. Daniel looked back. The train was still there, waiting. The dispatcher asked if everything was okay. Daniel didn't know what to say. As he watched, one of the doors slowly began closing. Then another. Then another. The train started moving again. Within moments, it disappeared into the darkness of the opposite tunnel. The dispatcher checked the system. No train had entered the station. No train had left the station. According to every monitor in the network, the tracks were empty. Daniel finished his shift feeling unsettled, but he kept the experience to himself. Nobody would believe him. A few weeks later, he mentioned it to an older supervisor during a break. The supervisor immediately stopped smiling. Then he asked a question. "Did the train have old silver cars?" Daniel nodded. The supervisor looked away. For several moments, he said nothing. Then he told him a story. Nearly 30 years earlier, a subway train had entered a tunnel during a severe electrical failure. Communication systems went down. Power fluctuated. Emergency systems malfunctioned. The train eventually stopped deep inside a tunnel. Several passengers were injured during the chaos. One maintenance worker lost his life while attempting repairs. The incident became one of the darkest moments in the subway system's history. Since then, occasional reports surfaced from workers. Reports of an old train appearing after midnight. A train that wasn't on any schedule. A train that couldn't exist. Most employees treated the stories as urban legends. Daniel wanted to do the same, until 6 months later. One night, he was inspecting another station several miles away. Everything was quiet. Then he heard the familiar vibration of tracks. His blood immediately ran cold. A train approached. The same train. The same faded paint. The same dark windows. The same empty silence. This time, however, something was different. There was someone inside, a single passenger, standing near a window. The person wasn't moving. Daniel raised his flashlight. The figure slowly turned toward him. For a brief second, their eyes met, and Daniel realized it was the same man he'd seen walking into the tunnel months earlier. The man lifted one hand, not waving, not signaling, pointing directly at Daniel. Then the train vanished into darkness. Daniel never saw it again. But years later, after leaving the job, he became curious. He began researching old records connected to the tunnel accident. Eventually, he found a newspaper photograph. A group picture of maintenance workers taken shortly before the disaster. There were several employees in the photo. One of them stood near the center, wearing a dark coat, expressionless, staring directly at the camera. Daniel recognized him immediately. It was the man from the tunnel, the same maintenance worker who had died during the incident decades earlier. But the detail that truly disturbed him wasn't the man's face. It was what appeared behind him in the photograph. Parked on the tracks in the background was the exact same train Daniel had seen, a train that official records claimed had been scrapped nearly 30 years ago.